This is Jay Greco, and I am a New York attorney living in Italy, which is wonderful. This video reel series is on relocation strategies, how you can find a great, exciting, wonderful place to live full-time, part-time, to relocate or to explore, and how you can find that and secure it, how you can get visas, residence, citizenship, property, all of the elements of life that make it easy for you to develop a second home. So these short reels will have a series of tips of ways to get started, of ways to think about it, and of ways to successfully plan for a relocation. So the first tip that I have, the first relocation strategy, is to change the way you travel, to think about travel differently going forward. So rather than go to a place and go to the beach and see the museum, go instead and think about how you would relocate there, how you would move there, how you would establish some contacts there, kind of scout the place. You become a scout rather than an anthropologist, rather than a stamp collector. So your changes to the way you travel become fundamental. So instead of covering a lot of ground physically, horizontally, going to a lot of different places, tourist places, especially like museums and sightseeing, instead I would advocate a strategy that is more local, that it's a hub and spoke strategy, that you stay in one or maybe two places and that you explore more vertically. You look at all the different elements of the daily life there, schools, jobs, commuting, the type of things that you would be doing with your day, banking, real estate, communities, art, churches, religion, whatever are the diverse elements of your life. How do you connect to those there? So the strategy is to change what you might call the fundamental tourist transaction, which is one of spending money to go for an experience and bring back photos. It's instead to look at a way that you can establish yourself there and also to help and become part of the new place you're exploring. So the trip itself will change, the nature of the daily activities will change, and the planning itself will change. So instead of scheduling for a boat trip, you might look to schedule for a job interview, or schedule to visit a school and look at classrooms, or schedule to meet with other expats in that area or family members. Maybe you have some family members, and that's again one of the strategies that we'll talk about in some depth in this program. So change the way you travel. Also changes the way you communicate about traveling, and it changes the way you speak with your friends and talk about the trip. And that is also a great and kind of non-threatening way to open up and suggest that you're looking at relocating. And one of the strategies that we use throughout this program, throughout this educational series, is there are many levels of relocation. Relocation could be, I'm going to go to the same place for the next 5 or 6 years. Eventually, in 8 or 9 years, I'm going to buy a cabin there, and then eventually maybe I'll retire there. So you can make a gradual approach. And in almost very few or no circumstances do people just go and never ever come back. So you're always going to have a dynamic relationship with your current location. So this first relocation strategy is to change the way you travel and to travel in a way that is scouting for relocation. So let me move now to the second tip or suggestion, second reel. And that is what we look at here is having a strategy, and particularly having a legal and economic strategy. So any relocation needs to have a firm legal basis. You need a visa, you'll need to apply for residency, you'll want medical care, you'll want to connect with all of the aspects of practical aspects of citizenship. And that is fundamentally, in my view, as a lawyer, a legal transaction. You're going to want to have the right to be somewhere, the right to get medical care. All of those things are exercising your legal rights. And so you'll want to have a strategy. And what I advise, and what we do in this program, is to have a strategy written down in a spreadsheet and to compare and contrast what do different strategies look like. And it can be said that you only really have a strategy if you've compared it to another option. So what we want to do is look at these broad brushstroke strategies. So one example of a broad brushstroke strategy is a student-based strategy, and this can work at any age. You can be 56 years old and go back to school. You can be 18 and you can take a semester in another place. So an education-based strategy is excellent. It works for almost everybody. It puts you really in very nice fundamental contact. It changes the entire experience of visiting a place. Rather than go for 2 weeks and see the beach, you can go for 4 months and make permanent full-time connections and become part of an institution. You can get really direct knowledge that's designed to teach you. And in many cases, the programs are specifically for international and foreign students that will help you. Cut to the chase here for a second. In some cases, universities will want to attract students and bright, promising students, and that if you finish their program, you'll be on the fast track to citizenship. They want to see you stay, and so it makes a fantastic strategy. So it's a great example of a strategy, and you can run it as a column in a spreadsheet, compare it to your Harvard education and what it's going to cost you, and compare what's going to cost you in Europe or Latin America or Asia, and you're going to get a very interesting surprise. You can probably get a house as part of the transaction if you and get a better education and a fantastic, stimulating, wonderful experience. So there's a strategy right there. Another strategy is through family. Family is a fantastic connection, whether it's close family that you're still in touch with or distant family, or even a remote familial root in a place. You'll find that family connections, that people in the home country are very eager also to contact you. It's, of course, a delicate thing. People don't, you should put people out of their way or make some false promise to them, but it can make a fantastic strategy. There are strategies based on service and talent. There are strategies based on specific professions. For example, medical. For people who have a background in any aspect of the medical profession, nursing, and I guess I should say a practical aspect in the service delivery, or if you're a doctor, or if you have experience in the medical area, there's often special visa programs which will help you and help the host country to use your medical knowledge. There are also ways that you can combine that with some training too, so that you can get more familiar with certain elements of language, culture, and local practice. So there is a very broad range of strategies. I'll give another one. Economic investment and business development. Almost all countries now have a visa program that will allow you to invest some money in a way that benefits their economy, and they'll even, in many cases, give you a tax holiday. You'll be investing some money, you'll be putting it at risk, but you'll still own that money. You'll still own the fruits of that money. Assuming you do well, you can even turn it into a nice profit. So that's another fantastic strategy. And these can be combined. You can be a student and be looking at starting a business. You can have some family that are mixed in the equation that you can rely on in various different ways. And these are different strategies. And you may even, in fact, look at different strategies in more than one country. You may look at what is my Italy strategy and what is my Portugal strategy, what is my Mexico strategy, or what is my Ecuador strategy. So you could compare and contrast these different strategies. And I would say of all those strategies, the best meta strategy that you can come up with is time and presence. Time and presence, and presence is being there, going there, meeting people, and time is over months and years, and you can kind of see that in any relationship. So if you were to go to Florence today and you were to spend a month there and you were to meet people and talk about your possible relocation with them, and you'd go back in a year and back in a year, after 5 years, you'll have this 5-year contact with people. And there's something different about 5 months over 5 years of contact versus 5 months altogether. And so it is a nice way to establish consistency and build some roots. So those are the strategies. We in our program will encourage a spreadsheet, but also that you start collecting some hoops and start that right away. So you can start that with the first strategy, which is reorienting your travel, and start it with a strategy where you're now have some buckets. You have a spreadsheet with some things to look at. Can I get a bank account here? Can I get a job here? Do I find a community of people that have share my interest in music or in art, or or other aspects of the daily life good there? So there is your number 2 tip: is develop a strategy. We focus on a legal-based strategy, but your strategy is always going to be, an individual strategy is always going to be unique to the individual, especially I think in the international context, because there's so many big knobs and levers, a wide range of frequency response. So thank you. And here is the third tip that I've come up with for my relocation strategies, and that is to really appreciate the differences in the cultures, environments, and especially in the legal systems. If you relocate from the US especially, almost without a doubt, you will encounter a completely different legal system. And that can be a frightening experience, I guess you could say, or a confusing experience. And it can also be a very liberating experience, a very interesting experience, and a very intellectual, intercultural experience. So you can really learn a lot. So going to a questura in Italy is a very different experience than going to a U.S. consulate for a passport. And these differences are at an enormously fundamental level. We can talk about the different legal systems, and I'll focus just on one element. And once you see how different this one element is, you can see how these elements pervade our thinking. And so you'll have to, in doing the process, expand your legal thinking to include these other cultural approaches. And that is also a moment you can learn something and have some fun. You can really experience what is the culture rather than just fight against it. So the first thing that I'll mention is that many legal systems have a more discretion in public officers. So your public officer in Italy might ask you more personal questions, and the rules there let them make more personal discretion on what kind of decision they'll make. So people here often look at what is the minimum income number I would need for a visa, ER visa for retirement. And sometimes you'll see on the internet it's 32,000, 36,000, whatever it is. But that may change, and it may change according to different circumstances. And if you try to look for too much logic there, or if you try to apply the English common law stare decisis, where each cases are settled in a very similar manner, you might come up with uncomfortable results. So what you need to do is think more discretionary and think of your case in a broader picture. If you do that, then you can also work on non-tangibles that make your case much better. And that goes for across the board for getting services, medical card, all that type of thing. So what I am advocating in the third point is to embrace the different cultural elements, and especially the different legal elements. I'll tell another aspect of that too is leases. Leases are generally commercial, personal rental leases. Renting an apartment are generally, in many countries, especially here in Europe, they're more favorable to the renter. So that means the dynamic of the rental contract is different, and the dynamic of securing a rental is different. In fact, you could almost say that a regular rental contract in Europe is similar to a rent stabilized agreement in a city like New York. So it gives you a lot of rights, but your landlord might be a little more reluctant and might also have more discretion in choosing a tenant, so that he may or she may want to not sign your regular rental contract. So finding the regular rental contract will have these different elements that are different culturally, different legally. And if you understand the basis of that going in, it can help with your own decision-making process, with your own evaluation of how valuable is this particular lease, and also in the actual nuts and bolts of securing and negotiating your lease and appreciating it, because most of the leases here are almost as good as property. You can have a great long-term lease that's like a rent-stabilized lease. So appreciate the fundamental differences, including legal differences, and those eventually get baked into your spreadsheet plan. So that's the item number 3 in relocation strategy tips. And once you start thinking along this line, and once you start balancing these equations, you'll see really how fundamentally different it is, how different it is living in another country, and how different the equation of daily life, daily livelihood economics is very different. And so you will be able to, I think, work that in your advantage. That's the goal here. So tip number 4 for relocation strategies is to make your case. And you can start that early. And making your case is eventually you're going to apply for a visa, a job, a lease to rent. And in a sense, you're really making the case to yourself. Can I do this? And you might even have some business element in there that's part of the planning, some entrepreneurial element. In fact, this is kind of like the ultimate in personal entrepreneurialism is to move your residence to another nation. So in making your case, you will eventually have a stack of documents. And it's kind of like applying to college. If you see what a college application looks like before, a year before you apply, it makes a difference, because you can figure out that, okay, well, they are looking for extra curricular sports. Well, maybe I can having a sport will be good, or having something that fits that they're looking for. So you'll find too that many of the documents that are ultimately needed, visa applications, citizenship applications, that those are actually fairly simple and straightforward, but they may require an attachment that takes some thinking, an income history, rental history, and so forth. So you can work that out, and the more advanced planning, I think, is more helpful to you. Also, there are certain maneuvers that can be done, certain moves, if you are relocating long-term, that you may want to select, and you're American, U.S. citizen, that you may want to select your state carefully before you make your move. So that's also one of the aspects. So looking at plans early in the planning makes a big difference, and especially if you're planning over several years, then that can be enormously to your advantage. And I think a lot of these projects you really want to look at as 10-year, 20-year, multi-generational projects. You may be looking at getting a citizenship in Italy, and if you have kids, then your grandkids will have dual citizenship. So there's a lot of long-term thinking that can be helpful here. So item number 5 is to build your ground crew. Set up your self so that when you do travel, you have support back at home. And that can be through friends, parents. It could even be a remote phone. And so we'll talk about some of those elements. But how you establish yourself in the new location is can be greatly supported by making the right anchors in the old location. So I will cut it at that. For this is just really a test. And so those are 5 tips on relocation that would go in the strategic category. So think of relocation strategically. It is fun. It's really fun. If you're in the office, if you're on the train, you can be thinking about relocation, especially if you've already gone to 1 or 2 trips to a candidate location. So that's our nature of our process that we'll be doing. We'll be talking about things in pragmatic, legalistic ways, but also in ways that are to increase enjoyment of life, to increase your personal economic equation so that you can benefit. All right. Thank you for your interest, and hope to see you on one of the workshops.